If I told you that one island could have changed the fate of humanity and turned the world into a wasteland for giant ants, what would you say? You ever seen that really old film called Them? Yeah, something like that, but more chaotic and dangerous. Let me break down the Jeju Island Arc in solo leveling and answer questions like, why was the Ant King actually that strong? And I mean, what was the Ant Queen feeding him? Protein shakes? Steroids? A devil fruit? And how did the ants gain the ability to fly like a little butterfly? So the trouble with Jeju Island started just 4 years ago. Being Korea's largest island, Jeju had awesome weather, cool beaches, and even better views. So lots of people from South Korea and other nearby countries loved to visit for vacations. It was like a super fun getaway spot. Until an S-rank gate popped up and everyone was like,
oh shit, here we go again.
The Korean S-rank hunters were noobs back then, so they didn't have an ass's chance in closing the gate. It was like sending a new level 1 player to a dungeon to fight a level 20 dragon. And because the gate wasn't closed in time, it had a total meltdown, a dungeon break. A disaster doesn't even begin to describe what happened next. Thousands of people died, and Jeju Island turned into a creepy, empty wasteland where no one could live. The events in Jeju Island also answered the age-old question: how strong would a human-sized ant be? If an ant was as big as a human, it would be lifting 2,000 pounds over their head like it's no big deal. Maybe even 10,000 pounds if they're feeling nice that day. That's like hoisting a car over your head or carrying a small elephant like it's a backpack. Only this time, the ants on Jeju Island were larger than humans and nowhere near friendly at all. Plus, they were magic beasts imbued with mana. So yes, everyone who was there was basically screwed and chewed and spat out and fed to the Ant Queen. But you know what they say. If at first you don't succeed, try until you die. I mean, try until you do. So for the next 3 years, the Korean government was like, we gotta fix this, and sent 3 big missions to Jeju to clean up the mess. But Jeju Island proved harder to control than trying to wrestle a wet, angry cat. But surely it couldn't get worse, right? Well, congratulations, you jinxed it. During the 3rd mission, Eun-suk, one of their top S-rank hunters, died. That was it. The final push that sent the Jenga tower crashing down. The government was like, nope, we're out, and gave up on Jeju. They decided to leave the island alone, hoping the giant ants would just starve to death when they ran out of food. And yeah, sure, that would have worked. It should have worked, if not for this little thing called evolution. I mean, they shouldn't have been surprised considering that even regular-sized ants do grow wings. And here's the tea about ant colonies. They can't just keep growing forever, like your pile of unread messages from WhatsApp groups. At some point, ant colonies get so crowded that one of the ants will peace out and start a squad of her own as a new queen. But here's a catch. She can't just team up with any random dude ant. Nope, she's gotta find a guy from a different colony. No dating your cousins. Once she finds her match, she scopes out a fresh spot to build her new crib. So to make this whole drama happen, she's gotta grow wings and straight up fly till I die. Now, it's all fun and natural when a regular sized ant grows wings, but when a massive 100-pound mana-infused ant monster does it? But that's what happened to the ants in Jeju Island. They grew wings, ones powerful enough to help them cross miles of ocean to get to the neighboring lands and get a lot closer to South Korea. The ants didn't run out of food just like what the Korean government hoped would happen. And when the older ants started eating their own eggs and larvae, the queen ant was like, well, time to visit the neighbors, and gave birth to ants capable of flight. So Korea was left with no choice but to start a 4th raid. Also, if the ants weren't stopped, they could invade the mainland and bring a lot more death and destruction in their wake. But compared to the previous failed attempts, Jinwoo felt more positive about the upcoming raid, because this time they had Jinwoo on their side. Quick recap just to refresh you about where he was during this time. Jinwoo had just beaten Bara, the Demon King, and was at peak condition to lead the fight against the ants of Jeju. If anything, his shadow army would have been more than enough to clear out the entire island and have everyone be back by the evening for Taco Tuesdays. Except, bro didn't want anything to do with the raid, because during this time, he had also just successfully crafted the holy water of life and brought his mother back from eternal slumber. Jinwoo didn't want to leave his mom's side. He wanted to continue being with her as she had just awoken after 4 years. So when Chairman Go asked him to help out with the raid, bro respectfully declined. Still, they went ahead with the plan, because one of the strongest guilds in the world was willing to back them up. Japan's biggest and baddest guild, the Draw Sword Guild aka the Blade Guild, teamed up with the Koreans to take the island back before things got even crazier. A simple hint about who these people are. They're basically the Avengers of Japan, with 11 S-rankers led by a national level hunter, Goto Ryuji. The Japanese hunters proposed a plan that was pretty straightforward but kinda genius. The Japanese S-rank hunters would play like bait, like waving a giant "come at me bro" sign to lure the ants out. Meanwhile, the Korean S-rank hunters would sneak into the ants' crib, now unguarded, and take out the queen. And boom, game over. Everyone goes home and parties hard in celebration. To pull this off, they formed the Jeju Island Raid Party, which was basically a squad of 16 S-rank hunters. 16, my guy. But you know what they say about powerful people meeting together? There's bound to be a pissing contest at some point. In Chapter 92, the Korean and Japanese S-rank hunters met at the Hunters Association gym for some warm-ups, which was really just an ego game of tag, all about proving who's the ultimate alpha. Spoiler alert though, no one was the alpha, and that became painfully clear on the day of the actual raid. Because all the planning in the world couldn't have prepared them for the beatdown that they went through. The hunters didn't expect that the ants were also preparing a big surprise for them.
Surprise, motherf***.
At first, everything was going great though. As planned, everyone did their jobs right. Japanese hunters roamed the perimeter and spent their time clearing the ants around the nest, while the other A-rank or lower hunters provided support in and around the island to make sure no ant escaped. They even brought in a cameraman to live stream the fight and had signal jamming activated so that the queen wouldn't be able to coordinate properly with its army. Meanwhile, the main attack force, Korea's S-rank hunters, dropped in like a Fortnite squad ready for victory royale. And at this point, honestly, I gotta hand it to jong-in. He was very much on fire during the raid. But he cleared out ants in every chamber like he was clearing out his browser history. Also, byung-gu once again proved that he was Korea's strongest healer because not only was he able to keep healing the team from their injuries, he also gave them plenty of buffs like Mr. Beast giving away cars to random people. He's like, you get a buff, you get a buff, everybody gets a buff. But right after jong-in landed the killing blow, a new challenger approached, in the form of the Ant King, who just came rolling in pissed that they killed a queen and started bodying everyone. Dude left jong-in like a crumpled can of Dr. Pepper on the ground. Byung-gu was headless. The other hunters on the other hand were in various states of hurt, injured, and sorry, don't mind me, I'm just dying here. Then the Ant King smelled something in the air and thought, ooh, someone juicy's outside, and left to track down his next meal. The good thing about that though was the fact that the Ant King saved the Korean hunters from the ultimate betrayal, because the Japanese hunters were actually planning to do something diabolical during the raid. The truth was Japan wanted to take Jeju Island for themselves, but it wasn't just about that. They had a whole master plan. They wanted to make Korea their BITCH. Here's the tea. Japan knew Korea had these insanely powerful hunters, the S-rank ones, the GOATs, the legends. So Matsumoto Shigeo, the chairman of the Japanese Hunters Association, was like, what if we just take them out? Then Korea will become dependent on us and they'll come crawling to us for help from now on. Such a sneaky, dirty plan. But you can't deny that it was a big brain move. Because if they managed to pull it off, then Korea wouldn't have enough S-rankers to deal with their daily gate struggles. Japan can then swoop in acting all hero-like, strike a deal that would benefit them in exchange for loaning out hunters to Korea, and basically take control of the country through the power of their hunters. That's why during the planning stage of the raid, Japan wanted to give the honor of killing the queen ant to only the Korean hunters. No outsiders, no backup, just Korea's finest flexing their skills. But the plan all along was to send them to the slaughterhouse like pigs. Japan was out here playing 4D chess, and the Koreans were totally blind to it. But why did the planned betrayal fail? Because the Japanese weren't able to factor in the Ant King, and how he would show up to ruin everybody. About a few minutes into the raid, Matsumoto commanded Goto to start pulling out the Japanese hunters and leaving the Korean hunters to deal with the Ant army alone. But here comes the Ant King, who used an ability similar to Jinwoo's. Bro could control his energy and mana, so he was basically flying under the radar. While the Japanese thought they were slick, the Ant King was out here playing among us, sneaking around and taking out their hunters. And after discovering the dead bodies of his friends, Goto tried to play the hero, but let's be real, he was just not him. So Japan got hit with a reverse Uno card on their plan. They lost Goto, their pride and joy, and Matsumoto's scam got exposed. But Goto's a national level hunter, right? How could the Ant King beat him just like that? Well, it's because the Ant Queen created the Ant King out of sheer willpower. Remember when I told you about how the ants evolved wings to be able to escape the island? Turns out, Ant Queen had another goal in mind. She wanted to give birth to an ant who would be strong enough to stop the hunters from killing her own kind. Her desperation to make sure that the ants don't go extinct like the dinosaurs, she gave birth to the Ant King. Now back in the cave, everyone was bleeding out and losing all hope of surviving the raid, until Sung John Wick showed up, because Miss Future Wifey was in grave danger. Jinwoo popped up to the scene and cleared out the ants who were about to attack the Korean hunters. Then just as Jinwoo was struggling to heal Cha, the Ant King returned to the cave, after he had just finished killing Goto. The two met, exchanged pleasantries, and started pounding on each other, fighting each other. Now besides its pure strength and speed, the Ant King was also a little tricksy one. At one point the Ant King used poison he acquired from eating a cone snail to attempt to paralyze Jinwoo, but bro is basically immortal at this point, so his passive healing skill took care of it. Then Ant King called for other ants to swarm Jinwoo, but Jinwoo countered with an army of his own, courtesy of the Monarch of Shadow starter pack. The Ant King slowly started to freak out about our MC's strength, and he tried to fly away to safety, but by now, he was too panicked to plan his exit. And Jinwoo was like, hell no, you taking responsibility for this shit. And after a combo of Commander's Touch and Mutilate, the Ant King was just a pile of exoskeleton and ant guts on the ground. Now if only Jinwoo had joined the hunt a little bit earlier, Cha Hae-in wouldn't have nearly met her maker. Bro attempted to heal Hae-in, but she was so hurt that not even a potion could bring her back. So in desperation, Jinwoo arised byung-gu. The good thing is bro didn't even need instructions. Byung-gu just immediately understood the assignment and pulled her out from death. The scene didn't sit well with Bak Yeon-hoo though. He knew that his friend wouldn't want to live that way, as a shadow who gets forced to fight every time. Thankfully, Jinwoo understood the sentiment too. He knew Byung-gu wouldn't want it either, so he immediately released him after saving Cha, and bro left this world. And an emotional Bak Yeon-hoo had a smile on his face. As the raid came to a close, everyone got flown out of the scene via
Helicopter, helicopter.
well, everyone except Jinwoo, who decided to stay behind to do some cleaning up, which meant adding another goated shadow to his collection, turning the Ant King into Beru, a loyal supporter of our Lord and Savior Sung Jinwoo. Then as Beru's first official order, he was tasked to clear out the remaining ants, which is kinda cruel considering they were basically siblings. I don't know if you realize this, but the Jeju Island Arc actually hinted at how much crazier the rest of the story will be. Let me break it down for you in 4 points. 1. During the final cleaning operations of the island, you get a surprise of not just one, but 2 monarchs. Raken, the monarch of Fangs, and Shalad, the monarch of Frost, arrived in Jeju Island about 3 days after the raid concluded, because they sensed the power of the monarch of Shadows. They also hinted at Kureisha, the monarch of Plagues, and commented on how that lady would have probably thrown a fit if she saw the ant massacre that happened in Jeju. And if that wasn't enough, Raken even brought up the fact that one of the people blessed by the rulers of Brilliant Light is also in Korea. This was a big foreshadowing about the monarchs attacking the blessed ones, along with the death of our favorite grandpa, Chairman Go Gung-hee. 2. There was also a hint about the all-out brawl that would happen between Jinwoo and Thomas Andre. Mr. Giant Mick Giant Face already established that Hwang Dong-soo by association is his property, like a possessive, obsessive girlfriend or something, and Andre said he'd never forgive anyone who messes with his property, even if it was the government of the United States. Too bad Thomas Andre all talk though, cause Buddy couldn't even land a hit on Sung Jin Him. 3. The extraction of the shadow of the Ant King, later named Beru, revealed that there are higher ranks above what Igris and Tusk had. Beru was the first general grade shadow that Jinwoo acquired, and he was even shook himself when he heard Beru talk to him. That's when Jinwoo realized that he can actually raise the ranks of his other shadows and unlock their ability to speak. That also meant he won't have to learn American Sign Language to talk to his shadows anymore. 4. Beru did a solo takedown of the majority of the remaining ants in Jeju Island, which was a hint at how reliable and strong Beru will be when the time comes. That was eventually proven when Jinwoo had to dip out of a dungeon raid. He had to leave Beru in charge of making sure the Knights Guild finishes the dungeon crawl. Bro-ru bodied the boss, an Arclick, within like 2 seconds of meeting. That was a monster capable of wiping out an entire guild, and Beru just casually broke its heart in the most literal way possible. But here's the thing, even after all the death and destruction that Beru, aka the Ant King, unleashed upon the hunters, he's still not the strongest dungeon boss that Jinwoo fought. That title goes to someone else.